My friends Annisa, Zidni, and Aliyah. We would like to present about the result of our discussion, and the topic is action research, which is more focused on observing the result of the plan and reflecting and planning for further action. Okay, but before we go further, I want to explain about um, research cycle. So in the action research, there is a research cycle which consists of planning, action, observe, and reflecting. So planning and action, it's already explained by the previous group 1, but now we will focus more on observing and reflecting. So this cycle is actually like sequential cycle. So it's successive state consists of successive stages. So if you start from planning, then it will return to its original place. So if you start from planning, then it will move to the planning again. In planning, the researcher will explain about WH questions about research, while in act it's like an implementing or doing action. Yeah. So, but now we will focus more on observing and reflecting. So first, observe. What is observe? So observing is in language methodology consists of two meaning. The first is collecting data, and then the second one is collecting data using certain techniques such as eyes. Okay, so from those meaning, we can conclude that observing is used in the social sciences as a method to collect data about people, process, and culture. Okay, so in observations, yeah, the researchers observe the students' learning activities and the learning activities. But remember that in observing, the researchers not observe how the teacher teaches, but it observe what action taken by the teacher to improve the process and learning outcomes. So next, yeah, first, okay, in observing, we absolutely need instrument. So it's not only observe using eyes, observe the environment, the situations in the class, but we also need an instrument. The instrument, it can be from the teacher, how the way the teacher give a task, and so on and so forth. It can be also using a questionnaire, survey, interview, and so on and so forth. And after we as a researchers get the result of the observations, it's about instrument or observing the class, we will do like data analysis. What is data analysis? So we will explain more about preparing for the data analysis. What is data analysis? So data analysis is a continuing process of using information from raw data to find trends and answer questions. Okay, so uh, by the data analysis, the researchers will know what is it? We know well, yeah, we know very well what situations and what happened, what's going on the object under study. And then in data analysis, the researcher will extract the main meaning and messages that can be found from the data. Data meaning it's about the result of the observation, and it can be about the instrument, yeah. And then why we should do data analysis? We should do data analysis because through this data analysis, researcher can draw new concepts, develop personal theories, and find new possibilities for classroom practice that can be tested in the next cycle. Okay. So by analyzing the data, researchers will get other more object idea. Beside that, it will also help researchers to keep returning to research focus or action. So the researcher will still focus on the object, on the what they will research. And then how we can do data analysis. This is 5 points from adapted from Burns. The first is assembling data. Assembling data is you have to collect all the data you have and continuous reflection and do the continuous reflection that has been made about them, and then review original or revised questions, review original and revised questions, and then start observing the data obtained and look for patterns, idea, or trends that seem to be able to answer the questions. And then the second one is coding the data. So you have to code the data based on the broad picture that has been developed. Start refining it with coding data into more specific and detailed patterns or categories. So you have to identify which data sources can be coded qualitatively, which data can be coded quantitatively. Qualitatively, it's like journal entries, and quantitatively, it can be a questionnaire. And then the third one is comparing the data. In comparing the data, after you coding the data complete, yeah, the coding is complete, you have to compare categories or pattern across different data sets. So you have to compare, for example, like interview compared to surveys, and so on and so forth. It is to see that whether the participants say the same thing or there are any contradiction to highlight, yeah, between them. And then develop table like bar or pie chart or collection of quotes to organize and display data participant in abbreviated form, so it can make the data more simpler. And then the fourth one is building meaning and interpretation. It's attentively about what the data says by reflecting on more than direct surface detail. Look for big picture concepts that are more abstract and not just step-by-step description of what researchers found. So it's not about only descriptive, but also you have to find big idea, big picture, big concept from the data, and then ask questions, identify connection, and develop an explanation of what research is meaningful at the level of broader's understanding of it, and improve your own personal theory about the purpose of the research. Improve your own personal theory, yeah, about the purpose of the research. And then the last one is reporting the outcome. It's about think about how the researcher can present the research result and what has been found to share with other. You as a researcher, what how you can present your result, and then what you found to share with others, and then consider how to organize the entire research story of beginning to end, and not just analysis and findings. And then there are also another point, analyzing and synthesizing and so forth. It will be presented by my friends. Thank you.
Okay, hello. I'm Annisa Maulida, and I will continue my group presentation. And I will explain about analyzing and synthesizing qualitative data. Okay, as we know before, and we know that qualitative data is research that the data are analyzed numerically. And then many of data sources that can easy to access, especially for the researcher or the teacher to get qualitative data information. The data, it can be got from the interviews or journals, recording of classroom interaction between student and teachers, and observation field notes. Also, I get from Anne Burns' book. There is two main tools that that we can use for analyzing qualitative data. The first is categorizing. Okay, categorizing is we sorting the objects or the information into logical group, and we create it in order to our interest or characteristic of the variable. In action research, we treat qualitative data through inductive and deductive coding. Inductive coding is we look at the data from the people's perspective that are closely involved in the research and analyze their opinion and view. On the other hand, deductive coding is we as the researcher or the researcher develop the categories based on the literature or theoretical knowledge. And yeah, here some possible steps for working out categories to coding your data. The first is gather all the data you want to look at. For example, it is like your student journals or the comments that made in an interview. And then the second is read the data over several times to make an impression on you. To make impression on you is maybe you find interesting or surprising or unexpected part of your data. And then the third is take a section of the data that give a label to main idea or theme that are being expressed. And then number four is keep doing this until you have developed several different labels for the idea of the data. And then number five is make a list of your different initial categories on the sheet of the paper or in the computer. And then the sixth is look back over your board categories and see whether you group them into more subcategories that are related to the main category level. And then the seventh is make a note on your category list where the subcategories is fit in. And then the last is show your categories to your colleges and see whether they agree with your way of you group them. It is like you ask for recommendation from your partner or colleges. And then by coding or categorizing the data, you can done it by if you have a hard copy of the data, for example, like a transcript, you can make a notes in the margin or in the edge of your paper and then highlighting and naming the section of the text. And then the second is analyzing classroom talk. Analyzing classroom talk is also qualitative data, and in qualitative classroom-based action research, the use of spoken language in the classroom is a major focus for analysis. When analyzing classroom talk, it is recommended to you to refer the recording and the transcript to get deepen on your analysis. And classroom talk research consists of recording and transcript that you have made before. Also, data of classroom talk also analyzed qualitatively by analyzing the text closely and noting the patterns of interaction. It is you like analyze how the first language is used in the classroom or how errors are corrected to the student, and then how feedback is provided from the teacher. Yeah, you can analyze like that. And then the most important and basic aspect for analyzing classroom talk is you must listen deeply and carefully to what you are hearing. According to the Richard in 2003, he suggests 4 steps in a basic analysis. The first is providing general characterization. This is the step you involve getting a general sense of the kind of interaction, and you are listening and giving a description in it. And then the second is identifying grossly apparent features. Here you look more closely at the obvious features. And then the third is focusing on the structural elements. Okay, yeah. In this step, where we begin to examine the finer details, it is how you interaction are structured and describe the most noticeable features. So, and then the last is developing a description for your data. And yeah, after that, we are moving to quantitative data. After we explain about qualitative, it is quantitative data. Quantitative data analyzing means you analyzing your data in numerical forms. And some people are assume that action research is not always using number. However, quantitative data can have also a very important role in the way we design and present our findings. And not that, quantitative analysis also can be used for gain a brief numerical picture of the issues, and then characterize or describe a set of number, and then to show numbers succinctly in the terms of average, frequencies, and percentage. And then the last is to show how numbers disperse or vary around central point. Okay. Here, on other hand, in analyzing quantitative data, it can be presented by numerical scale and descriptive statistic. In numerical scale, we also present in 3 main ways, that is nominal scale, ordinal scale, and interval scale. Nominal scale is a scale of measurement that you use labels to clarify cases measurement into the classes. And then ordinal numbers is you rank the number. It places variables in order or in rank, and also you measure the value as higher and lower scale. And the last is interval scale. It is where there is the order and the difference between two values is meaningful. It is you rank the number, but also describe the interval and the distance between them. And the second is descriptive statistic. There are also two main ways to use descriptive statistic. The first is measure of central tendency. This is one value is given in quantitative data set, and the numbers show where the data is gathered around central point. And then there are three ways to reducing number, like we have learned before in another class, that is medium, mean, and mode. And the last is measure of dispersion or variability. It is an indication given to how you spread the number or disperse across the data. When a measure of validity is used with average score, we get a brief description in the distribution. And so there are two ways of showing dispersion that you are likely to use in your action research letter. That is range and standard deviation. Range is give you the spread across all the numbers you have, and you can calculate range by identify the largest and the smallest number, and then you just subtract it. And for standard deviation, you getting an average of the distance of each score from the mean.
Okay, we are still in the group 2. I am Aliyah Nabila. We'll explain about the validity of action research. Okay, let me share screen first, guys. Anyways, I'm right now in the Corbuser podcast. I'll let you fix my microphone. Oh, I'm just kidding, guys. Sorry. Just make you are not bored with our group. Okay. I will make it bigger first. Validity in action research. Oh, sorry. Making sure your conclusions are trustworthy. So in this topic, we are going to learn about validity. If you are still questioning about your research, especially for action research, is it my research is valid or not? Yeah, we are going to learn about that. Okay. Wait. Researchers deal with validity that is close to those used in qualitative research. When doing an AR, the crucial questions are how can I make sure that what I am finding results in reasonable judgment and conclusions, or are our findings and conclusion as trustworthy, credible, and accurate as well can make. So in this, we are going to breaking it down one by one, guys. We have 4 points to talk about the validity. For the first one is keep the pedagogical focus of research in mind, and then use more than one source of informations. And the third one is immerse yourself in the data, and the last is summary point. So if you are still questioning about the pedagogical focus, I would like to explain that. The focus findings, the questions, and the method used to collect the data, and the way analyzed that should all work towards improving educational situations. So the teaching actions adopted in the research shouldn't disadvantage students' interest. Jadi kalau kalian bingung masih bingung dengan pengertian dari pedagogical, pedagogical itu pedagogik ya kalau dalam bahasa Indonesia. Correct me if I am wrong guys. Pedagogik itu teknik bagaimana kalian itu mengajar. Jadi di dalam research, especially for action research, di poin ini kalian itu diwajibkan berfokus kepada teknik caranya mengajar. Terus ada lagi teknik mencari finding-nya, terus question, terus collecting the data-nya seperti apa, and then analyze the classroom itu tetap pada situasi educational, jangan sampai melenceng ke yang lain gitu. Jadi kita hanya difokuskan untuk teknik bagaimana caranya mengajar. Kenapa sih kok harus kita difokuskan seperti itu? Ya karena kalau kita sedikit melenceng dari educational situations, it will be having disadvantages for the students. Jadi interest dalam belajar itu akan berkurang di muridnya, seperti itu. And the second is use more than one source of information. Strengthening research is to make the data analysis to the participants. Then find out things the same way to means not just making assumptions, asking participants question like, is this right? Have I explained this accurately? Is a very good way to get fresh insight on analysis. So I mean like untuk menguatkan pemikiran kalian, menguatkan research kalian, jangan hanya menggunakan satu data. Kalau kita bisa, biasanya kan kita mengumpulkan beberapa jurnal kayak gitu kan, atau mengumpulkan beberapa source kayak gitu. We can compare them. Jadi bisa membandingkan gitu. Kayak kira-kira mana sih yang bagus untuk direncanakan, di researchkan gitu. Jangan dan ini yang paling perlu digarisbawahi guys, jangan mengasumsikan sendiri. That's not good. Okay? Okay. For the next, immerse yourself in the data. Thoughtfulness, openness, and reflections are the key approaches at this point. As our patients and organizations, the process can be helped by such things as discussing findings, talking the participants, rereading the data several times, going back to the literature on your topic. Jadi untuk poin ini punya insight yang bagus, bukan yang bagus ya, punya insight yang luas itu sangat dibutuhkan ya, sangat the key of approaches of this point. Okay, we jump to the last point, that is a summary point. Exactly, there is much of point of the summary point. At this point, researcher should be getting a clearer idea of how to undertake the data analysis and where is, data analysis and where it fits into AR cycle. Go through the list below and decide whether you feel more confidence about each of the topic discussed in this chapter. Nah, this is ini ada beberapa poin, jadi tolong didengarkan ya. The main purpose of your data analysis in research action cycle, and then step in preparing the data analysis, ways to categorize and put spoken and written qualitative data, and then ways to analyze and describe classroom talk, and then the key feature of measures of central tendency, and then the key features of measured of diversions, and the last is ways to analyze and present your data using descriptive statistic. Okay, that's all for me about the validity in action research. If you are still questioning about the validity in action research, you can make question to me for the next will be explained by my friends. Thank you, guys.
Now, I will explain about reflecting and planning for further action. Before reflecting of action research cycle, Kokwan, Sunny, and Passmore discussed about faktor doing and action research. Jadi sebelum melakukan reflecting, ada beberapa faktor yang harus diketahui oleh researcher ketika melakukan action research. The first is the context. So the researcher must know and understand the internal and external of the classroom. Number two is the quality of relationship. So the researcher must have a good relationship between educators and learners. Number three is quality of the action research process itself. Number four, outcomes. As researcher, we always hope that our research have outcomes. Jadi sebagai researcher kita itu pasti mengharapkan sebuah outcome, entah itu dari humans, social, or the problematic. So the reflection in action research is much more dynamic than simple being the last pass in the cycle. Reflection involves creative insight, thought, and understanding about what we have been doing and finding, and it happened right from the beginning. Okay, the next is reflecting in the action research cycle. Reflecting is becoming an increasingly important element to any form of study or learning, and also one of the most basic important aspects of our development as classroom professionals, whether these are experiences of teaching or action research. Jadi reflecting ini it's not only in action research saja, but in any form of study and learning. Building knowledge in action research is based on the deeper kind of reflection that comes from investigating your classroom systematically. So the reflection in an action research cycle often has a dramatic effect on how teachers can build their personal knowledge of their teaching. Based on Anna Burn's book, there are 4 dimensions that often appear when doing reflection. So number 1 is reflecting on practice. So reflection and practice, it cannot be separated because reflective practice that allow people to comprehend their own emotion in order to gain awareness of them. Jadi reflecting sama praktis ini nggak bisa dipisahkan karena ya mereka saling berkaitan satu sama lain. And number 2 is reflecting on the research process. The action research process is likely to have been a much more intense experiences than regular day-to-day teaching. So the researcher will have selected certain issues that are problematic or challenging and given them special attention. You will have been involved in conducting a kind of practical experiment to test your idea, thought, or your hypothesis about how to improve the classroom situation. Number 3 is reflecting on belief and value. This reflecting, it's always appear in practical theories. So in the practical theories, we also bring to our research. Action research aims to improve and change situation. And for our personal belief and value are central aspect of the process itself. And the last is reflecting on feeling and experiences. Action research has an emotional and psychological aspect that bring personal feeling and experiences to the surface. Reflecting on feeling and experiences make you look at yourself, even your own thought and even what is beneath the thought and emotion from a slight distance. So, jadi emosi itu cara mengatur emosi dan perasaan kita ketika mengajar itu juga sangat penting. Okay, the next is planning the next step. As we know, the reflection is dynamic and happens throughout the action research cycle. But there are some situations that we have to decide whether to continue or conclude the cycle of research. Jadi ada beberapa situasi di mana kita sebagai research itu menentukan kita harus melanjutkan atau conclude the cycle of the research. Based on Anna Byrne books, I will give some example based on Anna Byrne books. The first is the issue you wanted to explore has been resolved to your satisfaction. And your action research mentor is no longer available. Jadi di sini contohnya itu your action research mentor is no longer available. Jadi ketika kamu melakukan action research, kamu gak punya mentor. Mentormu it's available. Jadi kamu memutuskan untuk melanjutkan sendiri atau mau memberhentikan action research-mu. Gitu. So, it's about continuing the action and concluding the action. I will explain about continuing the action. When you did your first cycle of the research, maybe the first cycle has resulted mix of both success and failures. Or you have gradually realized that the issue you started is not actually the main one you needed to address. So, depending on where the first cycle you have done and has taken you, you may decide to keep going. Jadi kamu ketika kamu melakukan the first cycle, tapi itu tidak sesuai dengan apa yang kamu inginkan, kamu memutuskan untuk melanjutkan the action, continuing the action. Because sometimes the second cycle will involve testing the same problem but with different participants to see if the new teaching strategy continue to work well. Jadi biasanya researcher itu ketika melanjutkan in the cycle 2, mereka pasti bakal menemukan masalah yang sama, in the same problem, but in different participant. Mereka akan melanjutkan itu ke second cycle. And concluding the action. After you reach the end of your action research cycles, you will build meaning about the whole process. This is the process of reflection of the whole journey of the research. Yes. Furthermore, when you are at this point, support is the most useful for concluding your research cycle. Having an opportunity to dialogue with others can help recognize and crystallize the most important aspect. So, while in doing reflection and planning for the research, it also has its own aim and objective. It is also divided into several reflections, including reflecting on practice, reflecting on process, reflecting on belief and value, and finally reflecting on feelings and experience. There are many ways and stages that must be considered in conducting observation on the result of planned reflection, as well as preparing for further research. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.